Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Best Games Period. I'm Jack Gardner. With me today are my co-hosts Jeremy Brown and Daniel Jones, and today it's actually 2016, but we're going to be partying it up like it's the end of 2015, and we are going to be talking about our picks for Best Game of 2015. And I think it's going to be an interesting episode because we actually got together beforehand and talked about what our picks are going to be, and they are all different. So, booyah!
They're all over the place. How do you? Maybe we've talked about this before, but not on this show anyway. Do you guys say 20? Well, Jack, you say 2015, but Jeremy, what do you say? 2015 or 2000? Or 2015?
I say 2016. Daniel, get with the times.
Oh, sorry, it's 16, right?
But as far as the best games
2000.
of 2015, I say both. It just depends on what flows out of my mouth. I mean, it kind of depends on what else you're saying, right? You gotta make it flow with the rest of your sentences.
That's true. That's true. It does kind of just depend on whatever you're talking about at the time.
That was really only an issue in 2010. Now I think it's settled science now.
Well, and then the year 2000, everyone had to call it Y2K.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody's just kind of agreed that it's 20, but to me, it's 2000. You have to be respectful to the year and say,
look,
the whole thing.
You work in a bank, and numbers are really important to you. I don't even look at numbers. So it's a struggle for me to remember what episode we're on, and we're only in single digits.
If we have to be respectful to the year, we would say in the year 2016 Anno Domininus, or whatever that word is.
The year of our Lord.
Anno Domini?
I think that's it, yes.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Domini?
No.
Domini is plural for Dominic, so if you have like triplet boys and you name them Dominic, you would say, we have some Domini.
Right.
Don't do that. Anyone thinking of naming your kids, don't do that.
Don't have triplets to begin with. That's terrible.
It's true.
So yeah, avoid that. Avoid having kids, period.
Boy,
unless you want kids.
2016 for the show is getting off to a great start, huh?
Yeah.
So anyway, what are we doing this episode? We're talking about our favorite games of the year. We're each picking an honorable mention, and then talking about our top one game of the year. Period.
Yes, and these are games that came out this year.
2015.
Last year, rather.
Last year.
Right. We're pretending like it's still 2015 for the next,
for example,
40 to 50 minutes.
So when you're listening to this, just pretend that you're in the year 2015.
It's a blast from the past.
Yes. So Jack vetoed my idea of Dragon Age Inquisition because apparently that came out in the year of our Lord 2015 Anno Domini.
Minus 1 year.
True.
Yeah. The Gregorian calendar.
So anyway,
we're going by the Roman calendar now. It's so different than what I'm used to.
Chinese New Year.
In my calendar, it's the year 3067. So I don't know what you chumps are doing.
Year of the mojo. All right.
What?
So
anyway,
Mojo. Anyway, what is your honorable mention?
Who, me?
For 2015. Yeah.
So my honorable mention goes to Fallout 4.
War
never changes.
changes.
Or Fallout.
I was going to say, the reason it's not my game of the year is because Fallout never changes, which isn't a bad thing. But I've had a lot of fun with it. I have not completed it yet, but I have spent quite a bit of time in the Wasteland. I really like the Commonwealth area. I think it's neat. I think it's awesome that you get to be a Minuteman. Although I'm still irritated that they pawn leadership off on me when I have so many other things to do, but whatever. You gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of gripes with it. The glitches are minimal, especially compared to other Bethesda games on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation consoles.
You had a lot of trouble with Skyrim, right?
Who didn't? It wasn't just me.
I didn't have any problems with Skyrim.
Yes,
But
you played it on
PS3.
You played it on 360. I know
Right.
that for a fact because you won it as a gift.
Yep, that is true.
So, yeah, it's another fun Bethesda game, even if it is more of the same with a few nuances, like the settlements, whatnot. But the characters are great for what they are. I mean, you're not going to get crazy, insane, story-driven characters when there are so many of them in a game like that. But what they are, they're pretty fun, interesting, entertaining, and man, the loot.
How'd you
You
feel?
can get so much loot.
How did you feel about the main character being voiced?
It didn't really bother me. I didn't think it was such a great addition to the series that it made a huge difference. But, I guess I'm kind of meh on that either way. You?
Okay. I'll get into it later, but I thought it was a brilliant choice.
Okay.
How did you like the settlements, though? I've heard complaints about it.
I don't really like them a lot. I think that they take away a bit from even just the side quests. They're kind of hard to manage, and they're not, I don't like games that are self-explanatory, but you kind of have to figure out how they work to begin with, especially the crafting and where you settle and who does what and whatnot. I think what would have been brilliant if they would have taken, like, the app they made for iOS and Android, the Fallout Shelter game, and made the settlements almost like that. Because that would have been, that would have been great.
Man. I was actually
That sounds cool.
I was actually really hoping that they were going to have some sort of crossover between that game and Fallout 4. Like the shelter you designed in the app would turn up in Fallout 4 as an actual place you could explore.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been really neat.
I think it would have made it so much easier to manage because you could just go back to it every now and then, spend 10, 20 minutes, do your thing, and call it good. I do like that weapons don't degrade. I thought that was always silly in the previous Fallout games. But exploring the wasteland is exploring the wasteland. It's fun. It's, there's always something around every corner. It's not, the content is there. You're not lacking for anything to do. You can always find something new to do. And some of the quests are pretty cool. And if you search every nook and cranny, you can find some pretty amazing stories and backstories and things that you wouldn't find if you just fly through the game or,
Yeah.
do the main quest only. So, yeah, great game.
Agreed. And that's probably why it's my number one, but we'll get to that later.
Spoiler!
What? Daniel, what was your honorable mention?
Bloodborne.
Oh, okay.
Which surprised me. Like, if you had told me at the beginning of this year that my second favorite game of the year would be Bloodborne and that it was very close to being my favorite game of the year, I would have said you're crazy. You are crazy,
I would have
sir.
said you're crazy.
I would have
You
said,
are crazy,
with The
sir.
Witcher 3 coming out, stop it. You're silly. and whatever else I was excited for at the beginning of this year, I would have said, you are nuts. I would have said, Axiom Verge, maybe, not Bloodborne. But no, Bloodborne.
Did you play
What-
The Witcher 3?
I did.
Side note?
I did.
Yeah, what put it over The Witcher 3 for you?
Okay. The Witcher 3 was a great game. I loved The Witcher 3 as well. But after a while, I just got to the point where I didn't want to deal with The Witcher 3's crap anymore. Like, just all of the stuff where you have to put different oils on your blades depending on what you're going up against, and you had to use different weapons, and your weapons are constantly degrading, and I had to always be going back to a town to go to a blacksmith, and that was so annoying. There was too much stuff in the way of me just enjoying that game and just exploring the world, that it had too much crap that it put in my way. And I still want to go back and explore and jump back into it a little bit more. I've played probably 20 hours or so.
Okay.
I played through the entire Bloody Baron and then stopped pretty soon after that.
All right. I think it's so interesting, just the time investment that video games take. Like, you can say, I put 20 hours into this game, and there are still going to be people out there who hear that, and they're like, oh, you didn't give, you needed to get past the 30-hour mark, or something like that. It's like, 20 hours is a significant time to invest into one thing. Like, in 20 hours, you can watch all the Lord of the Rings movies extended edition, and probably all the Hobbit movies extended edition, or an entire season of a television show.
And I feel like it would have been much more fulfilling.
You could have watched The Man in the High Castle twice.
However,
whoa,
I've heard that's good. However,
that's great.
Bloodborne, on the other hand, I have spent close to 50 hours with. I'm not even close to finishing it because it took me about 20 hours just to get past Father G, the second boss. And I just loved that game. That game is constantly rewarding you. Like, everything you do in that world is meaningful. And I could, even with my kind of short schedule and my tight schedule, and makes it hard for me to really dive into a game like that. I had some trouble getting into Bloodborne simply because I can't sit for 3 hours and play a game, period. Like, I just don't have the time to do that anymore. So I had trouble really getting into it, but then I figured out once I got rolling in an area, like, I figured out I can spend an hour in this area and unlock the shortcut and at least make my way to the boss, if not beat them, and then have the shortcuts unlocked and then just explore and find some items that I need, get enough echoes to go back and level up, and still be productive in an hour, in 45 minutes. And it fit my schedule, but also was incredibly challenging and rewarding at the same time. I just loved that game.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a really great game.
Yep.
It's still a really great game.
It still is.
And it was definitely a contender for one of my honorable mention. It was just barely beat out.
Here's the thing about that game. I got Metal Gear Solid 5 for Christmas. And it's in my PlayStation, and I'm ready to jump into that. But every time I see Bloodborne on that main page, I'm like, nah, I'd rather go and play that than Metal Gear right now. So I haven't really touched any games except Rocket League since Christmas. But we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my honorable mention, and I know I told you guys something different before the show.
Whoa.
I was originally going to go with Undertale because that game is really delightful. So maybe I'm cheating a little bit by sneaking in that one, an extra honorable mention there. Ho ho ho! But I think my real honorable mention has to go to Metal Gear Solid 5.
All right.
The Phantom Pain, because that game is incredible. It's so much fun. And it's the most natural evolution of a franchise that you can imagine. It feels right. It feels like it should. But then everything else about it is the work of a mad genius. Like, it's a flawed masterpiece, but part of the reason it's a masterpiece is because it's flawed. And, like, because it's so weird and bonkers and just, like, one moment you'll be, dealing with the PTSD of, like, a terrible situation, and then the next minute you'll be, running from a helicopter that's piloted by a psychic child that's shooting a giant flame whale at you. Like, that kind of thing is just insane, and you can't you wouldn't be able to do that in anything else. There's no other thing that's possibly like Metal Gear Solid 5. It's just incredibly unique. And it does a lot of interesting things, and not all of those interesting things go someplace that's ultimately fulfilling or interesting, and it has problems with gender representation, and it has problems with, all these different things, but overriding all of that is just kind of the sense that A, they were done purposefully, and B, those purposes didn't always pay off. Like with Quiet, there's a big controversy about Quiet and her design, and they tried to do something interesting there, and it didn't work. And that kind of hurts it, but also in a way, because they tried something weird with it, it feels less gross than in games that are just blatantly about that, like maybe Dead or Alive, Extreme Beach Volleyball.
Yeah, I want to make a point.
Yes.
So on that note, like, and this is gonna go in crazy directions, but
okay,
stick with me.
Yep.
I loved Star Wars: Force Awakens.
Yep.
Right.
Don't spoil it for me.
Me neither.
You still haven't seen it?
I still haven't seen it.
Me neither.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but I'm not gonna spoil it.
I last night I literally ninja'd myself around my nephews because they had gone and seen it, and they wanted so badly to talk to me about it.
Oh my God.
And I just ran away from them with my fingers in my ears because my nephew really wanted to tell me about the ending. I'm like, don't tell me anything.
okay.
I'll kill you.
Dylan saw
I'll
it
kill
3
you.
times, and he keeps wanting to talk about it too. And I'm like, don't even.
There are not going to be any spoilers here, but one of the things that I didn't love about it is that it didn't feel like it had any kind of authorship. It felt like a movie made out of many different parts and made by committee, which
J.J. Abrams is good at making those.
He is very good at making those kind of movies. And one of the things that, like, I would say about the prequels is that I did not like the prequels. The prequels are not good movies, but at least you could see George Lucas in those movies and all of his flaws and everything. So I'm not comparing Metal Gear to the prequels, but I can understand what you're saying about Metal Gear because even the flaws are kind of like accepted because there's such authorship and you can see his vision, and it feels like a Kojima game and a Kojima creation, where at least it has a personality and has its own identity, which, so
in games, that's really rare.
yeah, exactly. That is very rare in games, and I think a lot of games are built by committee and are made in the same kind of way that The Force Awakens was, and it's really great to see a big budget AAA game that has that kind of identity. So,
I had no idea that George Lucas directed Metal Gear Solid 5.
He did. He did. Yeah, that's what he's been doing.
Explains a lot.
Jack, how many hours did you put into Metal Gear Solid 5?
Oh my goodness, I put in so many hours to Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, I put in, I think, over 100 hours.
See, you
maybe
need to
even
hit
110 hours.
Yeah, you got to hit the 115 mark for it to really sink in. So you finished it?
I did. I finished it. I didn't get like the super secret ending that you can do if you go heavy into the multiplayer, but it's just a fascinating game. Like, I think in 20, 30 years there are going to be not so many games that people can go back to and look at like how we go back and read classics today and write book reports on them. Like, in 20 or 30 years, if someone were to do the equivalent of that for games, this will be one where they can go back and read like crazy amounts into gender politics or political, like the world political climate, or just interhuman relationships. Like, there's a lot of interesting and very literary stuff going on in the Phantom Pain that I really liked. And even if it didn't all work, there was definitely a guiding, purposeful hand behind it all. And it just worked. For me, it was kind of like the video game equivalent of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, there are weird parts in that movie that just don't work for me and seem absolutely crazy and can be boring or off-putting, but ultimately it's Stanley Kubrick's vision, and it's great.
It's one of the games I definitely want to put more time into this year.
Yes.
Yep. Just remember,
oh,
though, Jeremy, that when you finish that game this year, it's not eligible for your favorite game of 2016.
Yes, I'm making a note of that right now.
Put it right next to Dragon Age.
Yeah.
And with that being said, let's move on to our number one game of 2015. Ooh.
Are we going the same order, or are we going to reverse it?
Let's do same order, because I just talked a lot.
All right, fine.
And Daniel deserves a chance to talk. Dang it.
Yeah, but I went first.
Yeah, you go first.
Well, you don't deserve a chance to talk.
So my number one game of 2015 is is Bloodborne.
Woohoo!
All right. Whoa.
I'm a big Souls fan, as most people know that have listened to this show and to the previous show. Between Souls and Bloodborne?
I'm just teasing.
Okay. And again, it's a game I have not finished, but I've spent a lot of time in, and it's just got that feel like Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 have. And kind of what Daniel touched on when he was speaking about it being his runner-up, which he's wrong, should be number one, is that it's just so fulfilling to advance, to endure and survive, if you will. And come back and open up new areas, make it to places you haven't been, to learn different tricks and techniques to defeating not just bosses, but normal enemies, even if you got to cheat, like the wolves in the doorway, very early in the game.
Oh, yeah.
The big, mobs of pitchfork-wielding and other weapon-wielding people that seem pretty insignificant and innocent on their own, but can, really trash you. Learning how to draw those people out just the right way and taking them on one or two at a time.
The best is going back to that area once you're really high level and just taking them all on at the same time. It's pretty awesome.
And the aesthetics of that game are gorgeous and beautiful. I really like that. I don't know if I've heard of people call it Lovecraftian, steampunk. Whatever it is.
Gothic.
It's
Gothic, Victorian.
Beautiful. It's neat. You can stand on top of something and just gaze out. Don't do it too long, because something will sneak up and kill you.
Well, yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the game, is that no matter how good you are at the game, any one of those enemies can just ruin your day if you're not careful.
Yeah. And, and there is a story to it. Once again, you have to search for it, and you have to find it, and you have to want to know it. But you don't have to be able to enjoy the game at the same time.
Well, and I also feel it's much, comparatively, much clearer than in the Dark Souls games. There are actual, cutscenes and people talking and explaining stuff that you can actually piece together kind of what's going on a little bit.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. It's still incredibly mysterious. But
that's part of the mystique about it as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
I love how that game overlaps on itself, and you're constantly going back to old areas from, especially when you get to Old Yarnum, not Old Yarnum, the Cathedral Ward, and you you can go to Old Yarnum, you can go to the woods, you can go to, and shouldn't go to the other place, and you have just so many different areas you can go to. You can go to the witches, but when you go to them all, like, they all lead back to the Cathedral Ward, and like each area has all these shortcuts that you can use. The shortcuts are amazing, like just the way that the areas are designed. Especially, like, I don't think it's as well exemplified in any area that I've seen so far as that first area of Central Yarnum. Like, just the way that area overlaps with different bridges and the sewer, and it's just, the level design's incredible. To me, anyway.
No, you're wrong. They all suck.
Yeah, Daniel, you don't even know what you're talking about. Jeez.
You don't even know what a level is.
But then it gets really crazy and gets all weird with the Lovecraftian stuff after you kill the Ram, the vacuous spider. Like, everything just gets really messed up. I'm not going to spoil it for you, Jeremy, because I don't think you've gotten there. But it gets crazy.
I like crazy.
And I'd encourage anyone who's beaten the game and is kind of confused about what's going on. There's a really good, basically, like, summary of all the things that people have pieced together so far about the game, or are speculating about the story. And I think it's called The Pale Blood Hunt. Ooh. If you Google that, it tells an interesting story, and if you read that, the game makes a lot more sense. And there's a lot of interesting tidbits in there that you might not get if you haven't, committed several hundred hours to the game.
Is it worth watching even before you've finished the game? Because I've avoided it for that reason.
It's an article. It's not a video.
I've seen videos that do the same thing.
Oh, okay. I'm sure they're out there too. But yeah, I don't know. I'd finish the game first, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of games, that game is definitely a hunter's dream. You should play it.
Daniel, what was your game of 2015?
Fuck you, Jeremy. It was Rocket League.
What?
What? I loved Bloodborne, but I had to come back to Rocket League because every time I play that game, I just have a blast. Rocket League reminded me of Nintendo when they were at their peak. Like,
really? What do you mean?
It's just a Nintendo game. It's a very Nintendo-like game. It's very easy to learn, but difficult to master. There's, like, so much depth in that game. You can play it without even knowing that aerial moves are even a possibility. Like, you could play it for a long time without even realizing those are a possibility, unless you play the tutorial levels or watch some YouTube videos. But there's so much depth in it, and it's so quirky. It's incredibly quirky and just really fun in a lighthearted, like, everybody can play it kind of way, but it's not necessarily just a kid's game. It's just a game that everybody can enjoy, and that it just reminds me of some of the best Nintendo games I've played. I don't know. I'm not even talking like multiplayer games necessarily, but like,
there's just I know what you're trying to say. There's just something very pure about it. It's very.
It is.
It is perfect for what it is.
I think some people overlook it for like Game of the Year stuff because of how simple it is and the premise, but there's so much depth in that game. I mean, you watch some videos of guys that are really good at that game, and it's unbelievable what they can do. And when you see two teams that are very good and well coordinated go up against each other, the moves that they can pull off are impressive, but even more impressive is the coordination. Like, most people who play that game, there is no rhyme or reason to where that ball is going and how you can get it to go where you want it to go. These guys can coordinate to pull off, like, real freaking plays like they're playing soccer or basketball. I mean, they have strategies that they pull off and can manage to do it. And it's amazing that there is that much depth in that game. But at the same time, somebody like my brother, when he visited for Christmas, they stayed with us, and I had him play Rocket League, and he loved it, and he enjoyed it, even though he could barely even touch the ball. He spent...
Well, and I mean, how many hours have you spent in that game?
I don't even know. Tons.
And
more than Bloodborne,
and like,
probably.
And like just tonight, you pulled off your first aerial goal, right?
That was yesterday, but yeah.
Yesterday. I mean, like, there's still depth that you're unlocking in
Right.
it, and it's for a simple game. You know, it embraces that easy to learn, difficult to master mantra of that. I think is really core to what makes those really enduring classic games last.
Exactly.
It's a really fun game. I actually enjoy playing it a lot, but I had to stop because I wasn't good enough to play with Daniel, so he would get mad at me.
I did not get mad at you, did I? Did I?
No, I'm teasing.
I might have. I'm pretty competitive.
You probably would now.
I'm kind of a jerk about it. But I just really enjoy that game. There's something to it that I never... And the cool thing is that I never expected that game. That wasn't on my radar. That's another one. That was not on my radar at the beginning of this year. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't care about it at all. Turns out that there were people that had been waiting for that game since 2008. And they played the beta in January, and they played that game until it came out as much as they could in early access forms. And then it came out, and those are the guys that you're seeing like on YouTube videos, and it's just unbelievable. And it's the surprise of the year for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think most people were surprised by that game. It kind of blasted off and became a ball for a lot of people.
Yep, a ball.
Gosh, those puns, Jeremy. Those puns.
Oh boy,
you keep them coming, you sexy man, you.
So I don't know. I loved Rocket League. That's absolutely my game of the year, especially going back to it now and having as much fun as I still do.
I find it hard to imagine anyone playing Rocket League and not liking it. I don't know. Did you look up Metacritic for that game at all before doing this?
No, I didn't actually.
I'd be curious to see how many negative reviews of Rocket League there are.
There can't be many.
Because I have to imagine that there aren't. Like, I can't conceive of a world in which somebody's like, this game sucks.
Yeah. Even the most cynical among us have to at least appreciate that game for what it is. Or if they don't like it, just say, fine, I don't like it. But there's nothing bad about it.
It has an 86 Metascore from critics on PC, and an 8 user score. But I'm going to actually look up the PS4, because I feel like there's probably more. Yeah, there's 48 PS4 critic reviews, and it has an 85, and the user reviews are 8.8. So I wonder how many of those were because they got it for free. So there's 3 mixed reviews and 0 negative. We're gonna read some snippets from the mixed reviews, though.
Are we?
All right. Yeah, we're gonna.
I'm curious to know what they have to say.
Okay. All right.
They're gonna complain about the physics.
Okay. Video Gamer,
which is the most reputable site that has given it a mixed review.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, yeah. An enjoyable, compulsively playable mix of driving and football. In concept, Rocket League features a combination of forms so childlike it's definitely not to immediately be on board. It's difficult not to immediately be on board. It's football meets driving in the future. Unlike most childlike combos, however, like games journalists and Lego, Rocket League is actually good. Well, that was an interesting sentence.
Yes.
Unlike most childlike combos, however, like games journalists and Lego, Rocket League is actually good. Okay, well, I'm done reading that review because that's just a weird bit of editorial to put into your review, but whatever.
Yeah, they didn't even know what kind of ball it is. They called it football.
Another one is 4players.de, and they said, if you're into accessible, over-the-top arcade sport, this might be for you. But be careful when you play. At certain times, the network problems are horrible. Oh, okay. So these people are just judging it because at the beginning they had some pretty bad network issues because they weren't expecting 6 million people to be playing in the first month.
Especially in Denmark.
I don't think anybody was. Yeah. Actually,
definitely.
One of the players I interviewed for the article I wrote recently about Rocket League was from Denmark. One of the best players.
It was a good article,
world.
too.
Thanks. It's not published yet, so if you're listening to this, you haven't read it yet.
Secret.
Jack, what's your game of the year?
Are you going to cheat again and go off?
Well, I had 5, and those 5 were blank, 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 and blank. But
don't spoil it.
You know, I won't spoil it. So my number 1 pick for this year was actually Fallout 4, and I wanted to avoid picking Fallout 4 actually, but the more I thought about what I wanted to do for this show and just kind of what I thought deserved Game of the Year, I thought back on it and I remembered that Fallout 4 really affected me on an emotional level and really, I think, has some of the best game design of the year and I think of the entire series. I know there are a lot of diehard people for the original Fallout and Fallout 2, but I really think that saying that Fallout 4 is very similar to Fallout 3 kind of misses so much of what makes Fallout 4 great. We talked about this earlier, but I think one of the key components for me is that they made the decision to voice the main character, which immediately makes me empathize exponentially more with that character because I can't stand silent protagonists. It's hard for me to think of them as characters. To me, they're just, if they're silent, they're basically, I don't know, they're not, a silent character is not a character to me. It is just an icon.
So you don't like Half-Life?
No, I don't. That's one of the reasons I'm not a huge Half-Life fan.
We will be doing a Half-Life episode.
We will.
Absolutely.
And I will stick to it that Gordon Freeman is not a great character.
No, he's not. And nobody is claiming that he is. Anyway,
no,
let's talk about Fallout.
You will find that people claim that Gordon Freeman is a great video game character.
They're silly.
He is not.
No, he's not.
Gordon Freeman is as much of a character as Pac-Man. In fact, I would argue that Pac-Man is slightly more of a character than Gordon Freeman.
So Fallout.
Because in Miss Pac-Man, you at least see that he has a family and a relationship, and clearly some charming qualities about him.
And
plus, he kills
he's
ghosts.
Given his poor wife a terrible eating disorder.
The companion cube is a more likable character than Gordon Freeman.
That's true. That's true. Anyway,
I would posit that a character does not make a game, sir.
I would posit that a character makes a large component of a game.
I would posit that would stop our sync on our recording. So
we We need to do a Half-Life episode soon. I am so distraught right now, I can't even talk.
We should do a few Half-Life episodes. We could call them 1, 2, and 3.
Oh,
Yeah, the third one would never come out.
it's sad.
But yeah, right from the beginning, from character creation, I felt way more attached to my character. And for some reason, I usually make male characters, but I decided to make a female character because in the middle of character creation, I realized I could do that. And that whole opening sequence is really great. Like, it's not... I think it's probably one of the most affecting that Bethesda has done. And I guess after Skyrim's opening, I wasn't expecting much, because I think as far as openings to games go, Skyrim, not the best.
What are you talking about? I
Not
love
the
that,
best.
that dragon in the city.
I mean, the dragon attack was
I
cool.
think a lot better than the sewers in Oblivion.
Well, I thought that opening was neat, but I didn't like the whole just being in a prison cart for like 10 minutes talking to random people as an opening.
I thought it was cool.
As opposed to Fallout 4's opening, where you're running to escape a nuclear blast, and you have a family, and you have a kid in your arms, and all this stuff going on, this world building, and then world destruction. And then you get out of the vault for the first time, and you walk around, and it's an area that you've been in before. And I don't know, because my character had a voice and I could like see her like during cutscenes, that's a huge thing for me. Like in Fallout 3, you made your character, you customized their face, you never saw them again.
That's true.
And being able to see my character's face emote and have emotions, you know, maybe they weren't 100% the emotions I wanted the character to feel at the time, but I came up with kind of my own narrative as I went along, and the emergent narrative of this game was just really great. I thought the environments that you come across are peppered with all these little scenes that tell their own stories of what happened when the bombs went off, and you know, being able to think about and empathize with this character and being like, this is someone who lived in this place. Like, they probably knew at least some of these skeletons that are scattered around the world, and they probably went to that store, and now that raiders are now living in. Like, there's a whole lot of like nostalgic loss, I guess, and that's always been there in Fallout games, but I felt like it was really much more powerful in Fallout 4.
What I loved about the beginning of Fallout 4 is it was very similar to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, whereas you ran into a fridge to escape a nuclear blast.
That's very true. That's very true. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. But one of the things that I think Fallout 4 is really good at is looping you into the main story. Because in Fallout 3, you're just kind of let out into the wasteland to do whatever. You're trying to find your father or something. And that's fine. That's all well and good. But in Fallout 4, it lets you out into the wasteland right after your child has been kidnapped and your spouse brutally murdered in front of your eyes. And like, you were let out into this wasteland. You've literally lost everything. And the only thing that you know for sure is that your child might be alive out there somewhere. That's a real motivator. That was some really good storytelling, and it made me really want to pursue that main narrative path, which I think goes to some really interesting places and really challenging moral choices that not many games, you know, deal with. It's very, in the end, you have to choose between three factions, and, well, maybe 4 factions, and all of them kind of have good points, to be honest. And it's entirely up to you which faction you choose, but it's a choice that will be incredibly important and determine the fate of this corner of the world. It's really crazy.
So you played Witcher 3, yeah?
I did.
So I feel like that game made a lot of innovations in the open world space as far as meaningful side quests. And that's one of the things that I really did love about The Witcher, is that everything you went and did seemed to really have weight to it.
Yes.
I don't get the same vibes from Fallout 4, but I don't know. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, maybe you should try playing
Yes.
I will try playing it at some point. I don't have it yet.
I think that in terms of quest value, The Witcher 3 has some of the best written quests of RPGs in recent memory. Like, I think The Witcher 3 is a really fantastic game that just didn't quite connect with me on a story level overall. Not nearly in the same way that Fallout 4 did. However, I think a lot of the quests in Fallout 4 kind of come down to go here, get that. And that's not super interesting. But what makes Fallout 4, I think, a little bit more rewarding, for me anyway, is the whole aspect of exploration and discovery and the characters that you encounter. Because there are a lot of really cool, really well-written and well-rounded characters. And some of them aren't, like, the best. But then there are also some, like Nick, the android, Nick Valentine, who he knows he's a robot, he looks like a robot, but he thinks and feels like a human being, and has a, like, 1940s detective persona. And he's amazing. Like, you want to run around with this guy and learn more about him. And it's heads and shoulders better than previous companion systems that, like, Skyrim or Fallout 3 had, where people just followed you and you never really learned more about, like, Lydia the housecarl.
Yeah, she just helped carry loot. That's all she was good for.
In this game, Nick helps you carry your loot, he fights with you, and the longer you explore with him, the better your relationship gets, and you can learn more about him as time goes on. And eventually, when that relationship kind of maxes out, you get a tangible benefit from hanging out with him. And that's I think that's really neat.
Did you play Fallout New Vegas?
I did. I didn't beat it or anything, but I think I put like 15 hours into it or something.
You know, some of the character relationships in that were certainly better than Fallout 3, but I do think Fallout 4 takes it to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, I will remember certain characters from Fallout 4 for a long time, like Piper, for example. Like, it's so awesome. You encounter a plucky 1930s-esque newspaper reporter in the middle of a completely devastated wasteland who's, like, committed to fighting injustice and rooting out the truth, and, like, is super peppy and, like, goes around asking random NPCs questions.
Yeah,
that's great.
Piper's awesome.
And there are just so many little touches in world building that I really enjoy. Like, you'll walk through one of the main towns and there's, like, this whole little subplot going on about a school teacher falling in love with his robot assistant. Or there's a noodle shop in town that is run by a robot that only speaks Japanese. Or, like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff to do. And it's not quite like The Witcher 3, where all side quests are meaningful and impactful, but there are enough of them that were really well written and well done that I was okay with the fact that some of them are what are called radiant side quests and are really just filler to get you experience.
Okay.
Yeah. And I really wish I could talk about spoilers, but I won't. But the ending, I thought the ending of Fallout 4 was... The ending and story twists of Fallout 4 are just really good and really made me conflicted and think about what I had to do. I think it's probably the first time in a long time that I've actually had to kind of sit down and think about what I wanted to do when a game presented me a choice.
All right. That's cool.
I think that's a great explanation.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Why don't we close the show out by talking about what we're excited about for next year, what we think we might be talking about at this time next year, or this year, 2016.
Oh, man. The Witness, hands down for me.
Oh my God.
I'm super excited for The Witness.
Less than a month to wait for that.
I know. I've been waiting for that game for so many years. I've been waiting for it since it got announced. I was super excited, and then it took like 2 more years, but it's finally coming.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game.
I'm interested in that game, but I'm curious because I'm confused by the maze system in that game. Is every puzzle a maze? Or
I don't know, but I find Jonathan Blow to be a fascinating man, and I just want to play more of what he has to offer.
Yeah, what else besides that? Anything else?
Not off the top of my head that I can think of. Maybe Uncharted 4. But I'm not as big into Uncharted as you guys, so...
That's true. Would that be your most anticipated, Jeremy?
Oh, for sure.
Uncharted?
But Dark Souls 3 also is up there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, I am excited for The Last Guardian. I hope it comes out this year, because if it doesn't, why did they re-reveal it so soon? Yeah, I mean, I loved Shadow of the Colossus. We'll have to do a show on Shadow of the Colossus sometime, because I love that a lot more than Eco.
Final Fantasy 15, if it comes out this year. Kingdom Hearts 3, which likely isn't coming out this year. Is the new Zelda game coming out this year?
No.
So.
It's supposed to.
Really? I thought they pushed it back all the way to new hardware.
Yeah, no. I don't think that happened.
They have said that it'll come out in 2016. They reiterated at one of the recent directs.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Oh, I know I am excited for XCOM 2 and Deus Ex Mankind Divided.
You're excited for Deus Ex, yeah.
August 23rd, right? Right.
Wow,
Deus Ex!
I am excited for all those games, Uncharted and Last Guardian and Zelda, but there's no game I'm more excited to play and just see what the frick it's all about than No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, that one too.
Oh yeah. When is that coming out? Do you have the date?
June, I think is what they said.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could be a great year for games, fellas.
The one game I'm really interested to see is Dreams
by
Media Molecule. That game looks incredibly weird, and I'm not sure how it's going to work.
Well,
yeah,
we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
I don't know. That should be really interesting. But yeah, No Man's Sky, just the tech behind that just seems like a game that's really taking advantage of the hardware to do some innovative things. And I'd like to see more developers iterate on what that game is doing. And I'd like to see what they can do with it in the future. I have questions. I have fears about that game. Like, I have a feeling that you might get into that game and go down to a planet and there's just going to be nothing really interesting to do. and it's going to get really samey after a while. But I don't care about that right now. I just want to play it and see what happens.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Oh, and I guess Mass Effect Andromeda is slated for Q4 of 2016. I 100% believe that's going to be
If it comes
delayed.
out, it'll go
But-
close to the top of my list.
But if it is actually coming out in 2016, that immediately trumps everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, 2016 looks like it's going to be quite a year. Thank you, Jack, Jeremy,
Always
for
a pleasure.
joining me on this adventure tonight. And thank you, listeners out there, for joining us on episode 6. Yeah,
Yeah.
episode
Yeah.
6
Yep.
of the
Yep.
best.
Hey, you're supposed to be the big number guy here, Mister. Oh, it has to be 2016. Can't be 2016. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah. That's exactly
Yeah.
how you sound.
Anyway, Jack, get up, Jack. Nobody told you could talk. Told you could talk for the rest of the episode. You're done.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe you need to see a speech pathologist
my
about
closing.
the whole going blah blah
Shut your
blah.
mouth.
I like it.
It's a weird nervous tick.
Fuck off. So thank you anyway. Thank you out there for listening and putting up with these jerks for 6 whole episodes. We hope that you enjoy the show and continue to come back for more. And 2016 should be a great year, not just for games, but also for the best games, period. We have some cool stuff planned already. And hopefully by this time in 2017, we will be recapping an awesome year. If you like the show, also please share it with your friends. We are on iTunes now under the best games period. You can leave us a review, give us some constructive feedback, give us positive reviews, negative reviews, however you feel about the show, let us know. That'd be awesome. Follow us on Twitter at bestgamesperiod. And you can listen to the show on SoundCloud, Libsyn, our hosting site. That's Libsyn. iTunes, as I just said, and also you can watch the video version on YouTube as well. So, thank you again for joining us. Wait, what? What now? What else? What did I miss?
We're gonna be doing Metal Gear Solid 4 next week.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
next week, thank you, Jack. We will be doing a show on Metal Gear Solid 4.
I mean,
Wings of Liberty.
you don't need to tell him now. I mean, I just told
Yeah,
him. So.
Wings
Jack
of
pretty much had that covered,
Patriots.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Guns of Liberty. Shut up, Jack.
Wings of Liberty
Told
is
you.
a PC game. StarCraft 2.
Yes.
Wings of the Patriots. Alright. So anyway, we will see you next week, and we will talk about Metal Gear Solid 4 Snake Fighter.
What a thrill in darkness and silence of the night.
Damn it, Jack.
What a thrill.
What a thrill. I'm searching and I'll melt into you. What a fear in my heart, but you're so supreme. I'd give my life not for honor, but for you. tree frog. This ordeal, the trial to survive.